I just know you from the crypto world, and
You're famous on Twitter now,
right? I think people have shown my progression in the 5. I'm between 4 and 5. I think 4 is where you're a believer. 5 is where you're just a nutso evangelist, where you're pounding the table every day.
You're an official Bitcoiner. Congratulations.
I think I'm at about 4.5. I'll tell you what Trump said. I think I could explain it to him where he'd understand Bitcoin and totally change his mind. But what he said about Facebook, I tend to agree with. They are creating something a bank would create. They keep the float. It's based on the dollar. There's nothing crypto about it. So I'm glad he doesn't like Libra. I just wish he understood Bitcoin.
Yeah, look, the best parallel I can come up with is Napster, right? When you think of file sharing back, 25 years ago, which was a lot of people didn't like it, but it was easy to shut down in that there was a company behind it, right? There was a CEO to go and put pressure on. That's very similar to what Libra is experiencing now, right? There's Facebook to go after. There's other corporations that are participating that you can pressure and regulate. With Bitcoin, there is no CEO. There is no headquarters. You can't send a letter or call somebody in for a hearing. And so I think that the completely decentralized nature of the asset is what makes it so compelling to people. And we're seeing that kind of play out right now, and it's really highlighting the beauty of Bitcoin.
I mean, think of the Winklevi. I mean, after that movie, it's like, you guys should just go away and keep your $50 million or whatever. But they didn't. And Tyler's quote, I read that and I said, that sums it up. And his quote is that, I read it earlier.
Mathematical framework, yeah.
The mathematical framework. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with devaluing a currency. It has nothing, no one can Bitcoin be regulated? How would you regulate Bitcoin?
Yeah,
I don't see how it can.
There's 2 components, right? You can regulate the ownership, so they could ban the outright ownership of Bitcoin. They could say that it's illegal for what India's done, right? It's illegal for financial institutions to support crypto companies, right? Kind of cut off the dependency on the legacy financial system. You can't change the monetary policy. You can't change the algorithm that governs the asset unless you have over 51% of people agree to change it. And that's just not going to happen. And so I think that what we're seeing is Bitcoin itself has grown in such a decentralized fashion that it's just too big to fail at this point.
I think policymakers are not going to want to destroy it either or prevent ownership of it either, as they finally understand that you could take the friction of transferring money to whomever, you can take it to zero. Like Amazon took retail to zero. You can take that. Do you know how powerful that would be to take that to zero?
Unless it puts the Western unions of the world out of business.
Well, it's going to put a lot of people out of business.
Right, and it causes job losses, et cetera. And then where do you think the politicians are going to stand then?
These are the kind of things this is a kind of creative destruction. It's trying to stop trying to stop the machine, the industrial age.
Yesterday was such a big day in that you have to remember, gold, for example, is a $7 trillion asset. It's been around for thousands of years. Bitcoin is $200 billion. It's been around for 10.5 years. And we have the Federal Reserve chairman talking about their alternatives to each other. Yeah. And then you have the president coming out and acknowledging it, right, talking about it. If you had said 10.5 years ago the president of the United States is going to be tweeting about magic internet money, we would have never, ever envisioned that day. And so I think that what we're seeing is a shift in what we trust. Do we trust the humans or do we trust the algorithm?
Anthony, if it got to the point where it had a value where it was being used for a bigger percentage of global commerce and transactions, you can only have 21 million coins. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
How much would you need in total market cap to satisfy to utilize this as a currency, and what would that put an individual Bitcoin at? What kind of price is that?
Yeah, if you look at the different arguments that are out there, right? If it's just going to replace gold or kind of be comparative, it'll be about $7 trillion. The global money supply, call it,
80, 200 billion?
Trillion, 200 billion. Now, there's an argument that because it is a disinflationary, deflationary asset, what ends up happening is when you have U.S. dollars, right, what you're done is you're incentivized to take your wealth out of dollars and put it into store of value assets, real estate, art, etc. If all of a sudden the core unit of account, the currency that we use, is actually a deflationary asset, you no longer are incentivized to move that wealth out of the currency, and you just leave it there. And so, as we've seen across a lot of technology companies, Uber, Airbnb, et cetera, they're market expanding technologies, right? It's actually opened up the market cap. And if that happens to money, what we could see is, let's say that we go from an $85 trillion market cap to $125, $150 trillion market cap, and it's stealing that market cap back from real estate, art, et cetera. You're start talking about, Bitcoin being in the $8, $9, $10 million a coin. That's not going to happen tomorrow. right? That's going to happen over a really, really long period of time.
One of the
but it's
raps
possible.
is that there's only 21 million, and you couldn't use it as currency. Why couldn't you slice each Bitcoin into millions? I mean,
You can.
They've
there's
named
100
one of them. I think there's a certain amount. It's called a kernin now. There is. I want there to be. Anyway, the Satoshi is one, right?
Yeah. So
I'll get you one. The Melissa. You don't want?
Well, there's one Bitcoin can be broken down into 100 million Satoshis,
Yeah,
right?
why
So it's
not?
highly divisible.
So why couldn't you do that?
Well, you can,
Buy
and
buy
that's
a piece
the
of gum
belief.
with a Bitcoin. Anyway, Anthony, they're yelling at me. They don't appreciate it back there. They don't get it yet.
We're waiting for your wallet address to go up on Twitter so people can send.
That's where it gets complicated because I've never even used one of those little things you stick into.
Debit card?
No,
USB stick?
USB thing. I've never even. I thought it was a keychain. I got
get you
one. I get
hooked
one
up
in a
afterwards.
swag bag. I say, look at this ugly keychain. I don't even know what it is. Anyway,
Thank you, Ann.
thank you.